every time we talk about the offseason, it's not like the off seasons where we've come on and being like they traded for Amari Cooper, they traded for Odell Beckham Jr. There's no, oh my God, that's the sexiest move you can move this offseason. Unless you're just big on Malik Collins. Unless you think trading down is sexy. When you're the team doing the trading down, it's not. It's not sexy until you land the plane with whatever you get in said trade down. But there is one way in which the Browns' plan has already worked from this offseason, and it's pretty apparent. And it's with their handling of Shedeur Sanders. And I think you guys know, JP, he's the Shedeur honk. I'm Switzerland. All right? I have, now that he is with the Browns, I want him to work out. I think getting a second-round talent in the 5th round is smart. It's just like you don't have to love Shedeur as a prospect to understand that that is a win, even if Shedeur doesn't work out. If you can get a second-round talent in the 5th round, and 10% of the time those guys work out, you're nailing 5th-round picks. But the Browns clearly have done everything they could with the way that they express their message to the media, with the way that they have handled Shedeur in terms of when he talks to the media and when he doesn't, when he's with the team. They've done everything they can to tamp down the Shemania. And the reality is, there's a part of me that looks at that and goes, is that really in service of winning? Right? Like anything that's about controlling narratives, anything that's about controlling the messaging, there are varying degrees to that working, but there's a big part of me that's like, okay, yeah, if it doesn't lead to wins and losses, like, what are we doing here? If we're putting 10% of our brain capacity towards controlling the hype, the hype on Shedeur Sanders, what in the hell are we doing, right? But I also understand that the Browns' plan has worked. This plan to tamp down that mania, that hype, it has worked. I mean, don't go on YouTube because you mentioned Shedeur for 5 seconds on YouTube and you're going to get some interaction there. Same thing with TikTok. I put out the WNBA fight JP and I had on my TikTok. And Nick Wilson says, by the way, if you want to give us a little follow there. And guys, they were just ready to fight about Caitlin Clark. They were. I did nothing. I included a couple hashtags. I put out the header for what the video was. And then 5,000 views later, overnight, I was like, oh, I guess people have some fights to have over Caitlin. Shedeur's the same way. There really is. But when it comes to Shedeur, the Browns have purposefully tamped down the hype and mania. And some of that, I think, was in an effort to humble the kid. And when I say humble, maybe educate's the better word. Because humble is incredibly, incredibly demeaning and incredibly insulting. It's not your job to raise Shedeur Sanders. He's got a dad who seems pretty involved in his life and who has done a pretty good job of rearing his kid to this point, right? But the Browns are taking some of that, where Deion was involved in every facet of Shedeur's business life as well as his personal life. I think it's fair to understand that the Browns are trying to show Shedeur that this is how it works when your dad isn't in charge. So okay, again, there are multiple reasons we're doing this. I can at least understand that. Because the Browns' decisions don't always work out, but there's always logic behind them, which is something we can't always say with some of the other iterations of the Browns that have happened. But when I hear this week Ryan Fitzpatrick say, well, I think it's Flacco, and then you're going to go right into Dillon Gabriel. When I hear other NFL analysts say it starts with Flacco and goes to Pickett, the amount of people in the last 3 to 4 weeks that I've actually heard engage in the idea that Shedeur has a chance at starting week 1 or just starting this season, it's pretty limited compared to where the conversation was, let's say, in mini camps. That to me is effort. That to me shows that the Browns' messaging of, well, he's a developmental quarterback, no matter how insincere I think it actually is, it is working. But I think there's this sense, and I think there's this conversation to be had about how long the Browns will treat Shedeur Sanders like a 5th rounder, and whether that's all season this year. Because the reality is, a lot of people have written Shedeur off, and in concert, people have written off Dillon Gabriel. And those are all fair things to do today or 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. But if the Browns have written off either quarterback from starting week 1 today, if they've written them off as opposed to distance themselves from the idea, then they've already failed what is a very basic assignment. You pass the we have pushed Shedeur back into the minds of people. We've tried to tamp down the hype, the Shamania as much as we can. You get a passing grade for that. And I even if I don't agree with every reason you're doing it, I understand it. There is nobody in this quarterback derby that starts in 1 week's time when rookies report. There is no one that should be excluded from the conversation. If you want to weight it in favor of Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett, I get it. I mean, Joe's earned that. Kenny, I mean, he was a first-round pick once, and that, to some people, that means they've earned it. But even if you want to weigh it in favor of Dylan Gabriel, yeah, you drafted him first. You drafted him with a late third-round pick. You like him more. Okay, I'm not going to fight you on it. I think you're wrong. I think Shedeur is a better quarterback prospect than Dylan Gabriel. But in fairness, Quinn Ewers went in the 7th round, and I would have drafted him before I drafted Dylan Gabriel. There's less about Shedeur, and it's more about Dylan Gabriel. I don't think he's a starting NFL quarterback, and I understand the mantras or the ideas on how you handle quarterbacks in the middle round of the draft have changed. If you think he's a 7th rounder, it's okay to draft him in the 3rd. That's not where I'm at. No, I think if you're drafting when you have other players around them, like, and I continue to do it, Charles Grant, the offensive lineman out of William & Mary, who I think 3 years from now we're going to be saying, why the hell did we draft Dylan Gabriel, who's either a backup or no longer on the roster? I'm not saying I'm perfect. I could be wrong on that, but that's how I think we're going to see this in 3 years. When you have guys that I think have starter capability in the future, and you take what I think is a guaranteed backup at best, no matter the position, we've already started off on the wrong foot. But if you want to rig this thing, we're going to wait it for Dylan Gabriel a little bit. I get it. But the reality is that you need to leave the door open for Shedeur because, one, it's the NFL, and you just never know. Two, we need to be very honest about this because now that he's a 5th-round pick, there's certain Browns fans or certain Shedeur Sanders detractors. He's a 5th-round pick. That's all he is. No, he's a 2nd-round talent, right? And talent, inevitably, draft position matters. Talent is the second thing that matters quite a bit. And while there might not have been somebody out there, myself included, who didn't have Shedeur as a first-round pick or a top 10 pick or a top 20 pick, all right? And that is, like, I think Shedeur's ceiling is as a good starter, and that's the ceiling. He could end up being a bad starter. He could end up just being a good backup. Honestly, if he doesn't take to coaching, he could be out of the league in 2 years, like a lot of quarterbacks who don't take to coaching end up being. But you continue to cycle back on this idea. If the Browns are going to use he's a 5th rounder all year long, then they're being stubborn where they need not be stubborn. Because I might not have had a 1st-round grade on him. I thought 2nd or 3rd round. I think when we talked about it, I said, yeah, if you take him in the 2nd round, I'm not going to be as upset about it as if you took him 2 overall, which I think would be a huge mistake and disservice to the kid. But equally, saying he's a 5th-round pick, if you're the Browns 2 months from now, is also doing a disservice to yourself and to Shedeur. I understand the reasons we have to build up Joe. He's earned it, and he's got a lot of love in this town. I can back all that because I just like Joe. And physically, guys, as of right now, he's the only guy that I think can make big plays with his arm. And I'll take the big minus plays if he makes enough of the big plus plays, right? Especially early in the season if you want to try and win. But when I understand Kenny Pickett, he fits the system. He does this. I'll continue to fall back on his booty cheeks. But I understand why they're propping him up to such a degree. I think very little of Dylan Gabriel. I understand you propping him up to some degree. But when we get down to the brass tacks of where the Browns are, your quarterbacks are Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dylan Gabriel, and Shedeur Sanders. At best, every one of those guys would be the number 2 quarterback in every other NFL room going into the season that isn't the New Orleans Saints. And by the way, that's an at best. Several of these guys might be the number 3 quarterback. Now, the reason why Philly was ready to trade Kenny Pickett is they didn't want to pay him, and they thought more of Tanner McKee than they did of Kenny Pickett. If you want to treat Shedeur like a 5th-round pick. Now, I get it. But you have to be open to that second-round talent being the thing that sparks your own curiosity. He's got to do it, guys. I know he's got to do it. I'm not here to say where some people just want to give him things. Nope. It's the NFL. And I think he's got a great personality, so I think he'll naturally endear himself to his teammates. But how you really endear yourself to your teammates are work harder than everyone, know the playbook better than everyone, execute better than everyone, be the most physically talented quarterback or somewhere in that conversation. Shedeur has that opportunity. And if he doesn't, and the Browns stick to this idea of the things that they allowed to tamp down the Shedeur hype into camp, into the regular season, if he's doing everything that matters and you still treat him like a 5th-round pick, then at some point on a team with really just not great quarterback options, you are harming yourself. And that is exactly how you get fired. So don't do that. Think of your career. Think of Browns fans in November, and at some point come around to the idea of it's got to be a balance between where this kid was drafted and where he could have been drafted and maybe where his talent said he should be drafted. For the Browns fans that are already tired of talking about Shedeur, I get it. I mean, it is quarterback. It is the most important position on the franchise, and the other three quarterbacks are probably in the equal area of we got to do this or not, right? Like Joe's. I think I still continue to come back to Joe Flacco in a way that I think I might be more in like with that idea than the organization even is, because I think he's their fallback plan. It's on Kenny Pickett or Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur to steal the job, as it were. But I'm completely comfortable starting with Joe. But I also understand he's a 40-year-old that was available for a reason, and they didn't re-sign 2 years ago for a reason. And people are not knocking down the door for Joe, trying to get him to start jobs. And like Kenny Pickett, he was available for a 5th-rounder for a reason. Same thing with Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round. Same thing with even Shedeur. But I do think, like, if you don't like Shedeur, or if you don't like people that go hard in the paint for Shedeur like Peterlin, you are missing the no-lose situation that you're in. Because if you're right about Shedeur, and he's either not good or flames out or whatever, then you get to really harass Peterlin for a very long time about it. Something that I don't look forward to, but something that I'm not going to run from either. Or Shedeur fulfills some sort of prophecy, and we actually have a decent starting quarterback again. I don't see how this is a lose-lose. As the Switzerland in the room on Shedeur Sanders, I'm kind of being able to have my cake and eat it too. And you guys know, you get me starting talking about cake and we're going somewhere. But when it comes to Shedeur, I get, he's a 5th-round pick. He's a developmental prospect. Some of that I think is insincere, but they've convinced people that this is true. But you got to leave the door open for Shedeur. I don't believe that Dylan Gabriel is a starting quarterback in the NFL. And I think if you try and put him out there to start the season or in the middle of the season, I think that's going to bear fruit very, very quickly. But just leave the door open for him. There's no reason to not leave the door open for any of these guys, especially a guy in Shedeur who, if his name was Mike Sanderson, he probably would have been a 2nd-round pick. If he wasn't, and there's not putting it on Shedeur or Dion, putting it on all of it, the Shedeur camp and how they kind of handled the pre-draft process. But as we talk about the Browns quarterback plan, again, the question is, will the Browns treat Shedeur like a 5th-rounder all season? If they do, he has either failed to capitalize and walk the path they've asked him to, or they've failed to keep an open mind on him. Neither are okay for me. I need Shedeur to understand that it is his job to buck the trend and push back. And I need them to understand, let's not get all clingy with the quarterbacks ahead of him, because in the end, this whole season's about, hey, can we see what's going on here? Can we find something from that? And that leads us to Daniel Oyefusi, the ESPN Browns writer right now. He was on with the Modern Boys, and he talked about an extension for David Njoku, which I want to react to. But there's something within this that I think harkens back to this quarterback idea. Here's Daniel.
Njoku is still fairly young, but he's coming off an injury-plagued year. So on the Browns side, they might want to see him bounce back and get to that Pro Bowl form before they give him a big extension. And to Njoku's part, obviously it's good to have the money up front, but he might want to show again that he is an elite tight end. He is one of those elite tight ends, those Pro Bowl caliber tight ends before he re-ups. So I would be maybe a bit surprised to see an extension before the season starts, just because of the nature of where the team is and even them acknowledging that this is a bit of a kind of a wait and see year in terms of where they are at quarterback, where they are as a whole before they maybe transition in 2026.
I've used the word auditing for this season for the Browns. I think wait and see is another great way to talk about this. We're going to get to that in a second here. But, there's a lot of what Daniel just said about David Njoku that I think has to be where the Browns are. Because there's no way you can like David Njoku if they extend him before he plays it down this season. It's a gigantic mistake. He's 29, just turned. Happy birthday yesterday, David. He's 29. He's coming off a lot of injuries. And I'm not just talking about last year, but go back and watch him. If you haven't, there was points where I thought he was moving like a left tackle last year. And maybe some of that's how David is filled out, because he is about 270 pounds of pure muscle right now. But some of that's also just he's had a lot of injuries to all parts of his body. So he's been in the NFL 8 years, had a fair amount of injuries, and he wasn't good enough last year to justify this. It's just, it's not personal. Like, we get to this point where when people say what I just said, oh, you just don't like that. No, David's a great dude. And the guy today is different than the guy that when he came here in 2017 when he was 20 years old. But I don't know you should be in the business of extending good, not great tight ends in the first place when they're 29 years old, because the only tight ends that are truly, truly hitting a different level or maintaining that level in their 30s are the Kelce's. And by the way, he's taking a step back. Are the truly great, the creme de la creme of tight ends. So, and not just that, guys, I don't think they should extend him, if at all, before next offseason. And I get the panic. Well, he could hit free agency. Yes, he could. And that might bring the price down as much as it brings the price up. And by the way, if he gets more money, well, then you took the risk. It didn't work out in the way you thought, and there's no sense in overpaying him. He's not a core member. He's a very good football player. But the Browns have, Joe Bitonio, guys, he's a core member because he's been here since 2014. Look at some of the other names. Miles is still a core member. You're paying him big money, and he's living up to it on the field. Denzel, we can say that when you're healthy, when Denzel plays, he's one of the 3 best cornerbacks in the NFL. And it's wild that we don't have that take on him nearly as much as we possibly should. So you start to look at some of the guys I am perplexed at how Wyatt Teller, who's still one of the 3 best guards in football, 5 best guards in football, is not up for an extension. But you can sell me the point of, well, he's 30. Well, we drafted these guys. They got to start kicking around. I think it's dumb. I think you should keep the player when you got a lot of opportunities next year. When it comes to Njoku, there's just nothing about it that screams to anyone, you should do this. And if there's risk in letting him hit them, okay, guys, yeah. There's this idea of risk management. That's kind of what it's Andrew Berry's job to kind of lock in. But to get back to the wait and see, it's been really interesting to hear. There's been that groundswell of optimism that JP and I have felt this week with camp coming up. And I'm actually happy for it. Like, I want you to be excited about the season. We should. Guys, we're one of 32 markets that have an NFL team. We do not have half the logistical nightmare conversations we've had the last year. We are free in somewhere, not totally free from the Deshaun stuff, but we are mostly free from the Deshaun conversations. And this is a year of figuring it the hell out. But what's wild to me is I think when Daniel says the Browns are in wait and see mode, I think it should be understood that's from the top down. Like, this is why when people say, but Kevin Stefanski and what he's done, it's like, okay, it's year 6. Yeah, the farther you get away from success, the more critical of an eye we should have. When it comes to Andrew Berry and Dee Podesta or anybody in that front office, same thing. But by the way, we're saying this for about 52 of the 53-man roster. Miles, well, you're safe. you're going to be pretty okay. Miles could have a horrific year, an injury-plagued year, and we know exactly where he'll be next year. There's literally nobody else on this roster. Well, they might be safe like Jerry Jeudy because of contract. You might be safe for like Denzel because of contract, even though we're getting closer to another Denzel extension. But everybody else, yeah, tell me whether you're the third best player on this roster or whether you're the third worst. Tell me whether you're going to be here or not. That, to me, as a football fan who loves stories, who likes some of these guys and loves their narratives, like a Ronnie Hickman from undrafted free agent to potentially your best safety, starting safety, right? I love that. DeJuan Jones, get a little trim for a 350-pound man. Going to left tackle. Like that has me bought in and excited. I don't know it's going to work out. I'd give it a decent chance of working out. But whether it's Njoku, wait and see. Any one of these four quarterbacks, wait and see. And so to speak definitively on any of them, I think is a little too early. I speak definitively on Kenny Pickett. I leave the door open for me to be wrong. I speak definitively on my discomfort with drafting Dylan Gabriel. Yeah, I'm not the guy that's going to tell you I'm always right and everybody else is always wrong. If there's crow to eat, let's get it. We should be excited to be right about things this year, and we should be excited to be wrong about things. I think they're a 3-win team. Until otherwise, I think they're a 3-win team. But we're going to wait and see how that goes out, and that really drives back to the heart of the Shedeur conversation and this narrative that we all cling to about Shedeur being a 5th-round pick. He's a 2nd-round talent who got taken in the 5th round. Both things are true.